like mangoes, palm trees, all those things we are going to grow them.
Harness the Nile, and with it the 200 million acres of Sudan's fertile lands, and you create a breadbasket for Africa. Africa, taken as a whole, has the greatest area of potential increment in good food supply for the world. A functional, continent-wide transportation system would help prevent the mass spoilage of foodstuffs while making the African farmer himself more productive. Magnetically levitated maglev rail links could be constructed as an east-west corridor. A trans-Africa rail link of 6,000 kilometers from the eastern port of Djibouti on the Gulf of Aden to Dakar, Senegal on the Atlantic in the west, and from Cape Town to Cairo. Trunk lines would be constructed southward from Algeria and northward from Tanzania. Development corridors created along the high-speed rail routes contain all of the necessary basic economic infrastructure required, including nuclear power, canal systems for irrigation and agriculture, magnetically levitated transportation, and road networks. With this much-needed comprehensive development, the African continent would literally bloom. To achieve this, we immediately require the alliance of the four great powers: the United States, China, Russia, and India. These powers represent the necessary force to squash empire and organize a world of sovereign nations with sovereign currencies. Once rid of the supranational monetary system of globalization, development of the world population can begin.
I think the African Union has to support LaRouche's initiative of the Four Powers Agreement as something that has to be done in the short term.
The G20, they just had a meeting, and I wonder whether they are aware of some of these very important proposals that Mr. LaRouche has put forth.
We must work together. And these are the elements of where the population is. China knows very well from where they were 40 years ago, and so India knows where they were 30 years ago. And they have the tools and the knowledge and the experience to lift the rest of us in Africa. so that we come to par. We are all at par, and we all have the same citizen of the same world, then definitely we will have a good economic system.
Let's take the case of the recent agreement between Russia and China, a historic agreement which took place a few days after my attendance at the Rhodes Conference. Now, they came into an agreement which, if extended to include India, and there are negotiations to that effect, and if the United States were to train Obama to walk on two legs instead of all fours, the United States would join.
Were the United States, China, Russia, and India to enter into the proper negotiations to put an end to the current usurious monetarist system and opt for a new system based on cheap international credits, then capital goods could be exported to the nations of Africa and credit could be made available for the kind of infrastructure projects Africa requires. Similarly, the production of capital goods would advance the productive capabilities of the Big Four. The investment into long-term development projects in Africa would increase the skill level and labor powers of the African workers and bring greater efficiencies in production and wealth to the Big Four nations and the rest of the world as well. Within such an arrangement, the governing principle would be development for the benefit of the other, to bring wealth and prosperity to all. Ending human slavery and developing Africa is a benefit to all mankind. When the British Empire and its globalization are removed from the world picture once and for all, the potential of Africa and the world are at last unleashed.
Certainly, Africa cannot ignore space exploration, but at the moment, technologically, it's just something that they're not taking as one of their priorities.
The best thing you could possibly do to eliminate the British oligarchy, the British Empire in our own minds, is to have something like the Mars program.
Africa is far, far too underpopulated right now for us to sustain a real extraterrestrial imperative. The educational and economic levels are obviously far behind where they need to be for us as a species to be able to maintain an extraterrestrial imperative. So under those conditions, Africa is going to have to play a major role. And the Africa that the African continent you'll be seeing, and the world you'll be seeing under those circumstances, is going to be very different than the one of today. In some ways, almost unimaginably different.
So therefore, what we can do on Earth is limited to what we can do outside Earth. So what you need is a driver program